but I need another liquid. Yes, another liquid? I do. It is not Crossroads if we don't have some Crossroads coffee, right? Yes, there's nothing like following up a depressant with an upper. Nothing like it at all. I want to be the first person to actually have coffee here on the stage. Would love that. I'll give you that. Okay, you're going to give me that one? Okay. This is good. Hey, cheers to all God is doing right here across us. You mean it was actually like this, don't you? Is that what you meant? This is really bothering you, isn't it? Wow. Now, anybody who knows me knows that as soon as I find something bothers you, now, who's been at Crossroads for any of our other dedications? Who's been to any of our other dedications? So how many of us right now are in on the joke? How many of us are in on the joke? I don't see any lights. Where's those lights? How many of us are in on the joke? There we are. Okay, good. Yes, this is actually a teaching moment that we use every single time. It's bothering you. You can't even pay attention, so I'll stop it. You know, we come into a place like this, and this is the very first time that we've started a Crossroads location with a building we own and is outfitted for us from day one. The very first time that's happened. And when we first moved into our permanent facility in Oakley, when we first moved in, we had been in sort of nomadic facilities. None of them were very nice facilities. And all of a sudden we came into this beautiful, pristine atrium. Everything was good. And we really felt a concern that maybe Crossroads would start to lose its soul. Maybe we would now be into stuff and buildings instead of being into people. And so we did something, that first thing we've done ever since. We want to christen every new room we own with coffee stains. And this is why we do this. We do this first because, okay, now the first stain's over and done. Let's do real ministry right now. Though some of our ministries, we actually are in facilities, we do clean up and we clean up stains. Thank you for those of you who will be cleaning this up later. But the other thing is this, and they get me this is very, very important. Crossroads does not value buildings, we value people. Crossroads does not build buildings, we build people. We use buildings, we will construct buildings, but our best efforts are always towards people. Always have been and always will be. And we are bringing our best here to Florence, Kentucky. Our best. That video that we had earlier showed it really, really well. All the people who were talking about how their life had been touched, how their life was transformed. It was a people story. And then it went into buildings. Buildings are always second. People are always first. And sometimes a building is most helpful in building God's people. I want to share with you a story about that tonight to connect the dots for all of us. In the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles, it's chronicling the nation of Israel and their leadership and some of the leadership decisions they make. King David is an amazing teacher. Not an amazing teacher. He's an amazing warrior. He's an amazing poet. He actually is an amazing teacher. He puts in his prayer diary songs and prayers that we still have today as the book of Psalms. But this mighty warrior all of a sudden looks at how the nation of Israel is coming together and worshiping in a tabernacle. Basically a nomadic structure that goes up and comes down. And he looks around at other countries and he says, other countries, for their deities who aren't real and aren't the one true God, they have these permanent nice structures. I would like to build a structure for the one true God, the one real God. And so they go into their very first building campaign. And we use that story when we started the Game Change campaign, 2 years or so ago, when David actually goes and he gives, and he has all the leaders and all the people of Israel are inspired and follow his model of giving. Here's what it says in the book of 1 Chronicles chapter 29. But who am I, and what is this people that we should be able to offer willingly? I know, my God, that you test the heart and have pleasure in uprightness, in the uprightness of my heart, and I freely offered all these things, and now I have seen your people who are present here offering freely and joyously to you. And this is what we have here today. We have people who are offering freely, generously, and joyously. Is that right? Is that right? No one twisted our arm to give. No one twisted our arm to do e-gift. No one twisted our arm to liquidate our savings. There was challenges, but we freely and joyously said, I want to be a part of something that's just beyond the American dream. I want to be a part of something that's leaving a mark in people's lives and leaving a mark in people's hearts. And as a result of that, we get to celebrate in a very unique way tonight that very, very few people ever get to celebrate. We had somebody come in here today who was a part of Crossroads, just doing some things here and there, and he just couldn't understand the building. He said, "What? Did you have state funding for this?" I thought, state funding? Interesting. State funding, federal funding. I mean, no, it's normal people who've given freely and generously. And why is this? Two big points tonight. Why does David, the leaders, the nation of Israel, why do they choose to do this? It's because God's people take responsibility. God's people always take responsibility. Always. They took responsibility for seeing that there was a building, a structure that facilitated their worship, facilitated people connecting with God. They said, we will take responsibility for that. Yes, God, you have given all things in the heavenlies. You have put everything into our bank accounts, everything into our bags, but we will take responsibility for figuring out how to distribute that and how to get rid of that. It's amazing to me how many people in churches, many people who say they read the Bible, who pray, miss this really, really big. We tend to think that if God's in it, it's going to get done. Of course. If God's in it, it always will get done. Yes, absolutely. But oftentimes the way that's talked about is, well, if God wants it to happen, then it's just going to sort of happen. It's going to be like grease lightning. Nothing's going to stop. It's going to be easy and bam. And that's just not reality. There is nothing of significance that I can think of in the Bible, other than maybe the creation of the world. That's significant. Nothing in the Bible that happens of significance that doesn't happen with one of God's people taking responsibility over and over and over and over again. And we do this in all of our life, don't we? In fact, I learned this again when I saw Michael Phelps the other day. What an amazing guy, an amazing Olympian, an amazing... Who knows you guys are here to work with God? You're here tonight instead of watching the Olympics live. That's pretty impressive. Very impressive. You know, if you know the story of Michael Phelps, what's he have? 20, how many medals? 22 medals. Right? So was it 20 gold, 18 gold? Amazing. You know, when he came back and started his very first race of this Olympics, he took fourth. Ryan Lochte got the first one, he took fourth. People thought, this is done. This is going to be Olympics. You're over and done. Second race, he gets silver. Someone just barely taps out ahead of him. In a race with the previous Olympics, he would have won himself. He gets a silver. And they asked him a couple nights ago in this interview I saw, Bob Costas asked him, he said, how'd that feel? How were you processing that? He said, I realized I trained for a silver medal. I trained for silver place. I trained for fourth place. Meaning, I got started late on my training, and that's the best I could do. Well, that was fascinating. He trained for a silver, he said. Other way of saying is, I take responsibility for where I'm going, and my training meant that's all I could get. I wish God's people, I wish we would get this. In no other realm do we think this. In no other realm do we say, oh, well, if God's in it, I'm going to lose weight. No, you're going to take responsibility. Well, if God's in it, I'm going to become really well-read. No, you're going to take responsibility and choose to become well-read. Well, if God's in it, I'm just going to get a really great prayer life. Talk with anybody in here who has a great prayer life. They took responsibility, and it was hard to begin with, and they developed it. Anybody said, well, God just gave me a real understanding of the Bible. No, He didn't. No, He didn't. Someone took responsibility to read it, figure it out, struggle with it. Always, and here's the thing. Every great thing that God does, every great thing happens when more people take responsibility. The more people take responsibility and you say, God, this is your calling, this is is my heritage. This is in my DNA that you planted in me spiritually, and I now have the responsibility to activate it. The more people who do that, the purpose of God always go forward faster and with more power. Always. Now, just so you understand, this doesn't mean that everything rises and falls on people. It absolutely does not. God obviously has a role, but there's pain when you take responsibility. Even that word responsibility, we don't like that word, do we? In fact, most of the time when someone says, "Don't you take responsibility?" it's kind of negative. We don't like that. It's rough.